All I remember is after that, I'm waking up in my car and the windshield is in on my face and there's like these oldies playing on the radio and there's just screams in the dark. My name is Christian Dion Hogan, but I go by Von Dion. I've been sober for 6 years. Got sober in 2014. And growing up, I grew up in a family full of, I'm the youngest of 3 boys, so I have 2 older brothers, and the son of 2 entrepreneurs. My father is a general contractor and owns a company in Detroit. I grew up out there in Michigan, right outside Detroit, in a little town called West Bloomfield. And my mom is also, she's an attorney, so she has a little private practice in Michigan. So when I was growing up, it was kind of, I had a pretty good childhood. It was, how do I say, like, I was, pretty comfortable, upper middle class. Didn't really want for anything. My drug of choice was alcohol, so I drank a ton. And I experimented with other drugs as well. Like I smoked a lot of weed during my time of, when I wasn't sober. The fun part about it was partying. Like I love to be around people. I love to talk to people. When I was using, that's what I also craved too. I craved self-expression, and drinking alcohol, getting really drunk or getting really high, smoking weed is a way for you to allow yourself to push that limit, right? Go over that threshold, leave your inhibitions behind and just do something crazy. From there, it cascades. It cascaded into me just drinking because I could, or maybe that's what I was telling myself, or just drinking because like I was sad, or I felt like I didn't fit in. I felt like I was an outsider. Or just, at the end of my run, really just being like, I know I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die soon. And if somebody doesn't come and kill me, which I always thought that somebody was gonna come and shoot me for some reason. I don't know why. But that had always been in my head. I'm like, if somebody's not gonna come and kill me, then I'm going to just keep drinking until I die, until I drink myself to death. First time I drank alcohol, I was in 10th grade, and I was at a party. We had just, my brother and I and my friend had just transferred to this prep school, and we had just got invited to a really, just like one of the first parties at a really big house. I was really into Kid Cudi at the time. And I remember Kid Cudi would always be rapping about Jaeger. And I was like, I want to try Jaeger, right? I want Jaeger. So the first time I got drunk is like I got drunk off Jaeger, and we were at this party and somebody had Jaeger and I was like, whoa. So I forget how I think I just drank it straight. But I remember drinking it and my brother was like, yo, what are you doing? And he's like, look, man, why are you doing this? We're athletes, man. Like, we can't do this. And then I just remember being like, nah, man, I want to have fun. Like, just get away from me. Like, whatever. Like, you can do whatever you want to do. I want to have fun. And sadly, shortly after that, he was drinking too. The craziest thing that has happened to me while drinking is, it would have to be, the car accident. I got into a car accident. It put me in the situation that I'm in now. It was October 27th, 2013. And I got into a head-on collision. I was blacked out drunk in the car. I don't even remember getting into the car. I remember that day I was living with one of my good friends at the time. I remember sneaking out. Why I snuck out, I don't know. It wasn't like she wasn't gonna let me go anywhere. It wasn't like I needed to sneak out, but I snuck out for no reason. It was so weird. So like I put on a costume. It was like a costume party. I put on a costume, snuck out, and just ended up going to this party, right? So I'm at this party and I get a whole case of beer. My whole thing was like I would always get a 30 rack and try to drink the whole thing. That's too much beer anyway. Earlier that night, I always forget this part, and I haven't said this in a long time. Earlier that night, there was a dude that I talked to. He was like somebody's friend from USC, and he was like visiting our school, just having a like come to the party. He was like, "Hey man," he started talking about drunk drivers, and he asked me if I drove there today. I was like, "I did drive there." He was like, "Hey man, I just want you to know that you shouldn't drink and drive. Like, drinking and driving is the worst thing." And I was like, "Look, bro, I'm not going to drink and drive. I got a ton of friends here at this party. I'm not going to drive my car from here." So that was weird. So I just continued drinking. It was a blur. I do remember getting into another person's car. We went to another party because the cops shut down that party. So we went to another party across town. I was in the car with these two guys that I knew. And me being me at the time, I wanted to start a fight. So something happened. I get in an argument. I start a fight with these dudes. And they're still trying to help me. They're like, "No, man, just like, it's okay. Come, you're drunk. Just come with us." And I'm like, "No, I'm not riding with you. Forget you. I'm not riding with you." So I get out of the car. I'm going in and out. I don't know what happens. I just know I end up at another party. So I'm at this party and we're just going. At this point, it's probably 2 a.m. I got into the accident around 3 a.m. So I start leaving and somehow I get back to my car. I don't know. But next thing I know is I'm in the car and I'm driving and I'm like going in and out. Like I don't realize that I'm driving, but also in my mind, I'm thinking I'm playing a game. I'm thinking I'm playing a game in my head. So I'm like, like kind of faking out cars on the road. And I'm like doing that. And I'm like, "Oh, almost got you. Oh, almost got you. Oh." All I remember is after that, I'm waking up in my car and the windshield is in on my face. And there's like these oldies playing on the radio. And there's just screams in the dark. Like I hear, and everything is like complete darkness though. Cause I'm in an area where it's a back road. At this point, I've been browning out. Like I'm at the party. I'm talking to this guy. Next thing I know, I'm in the car fighting with these guys. Next thing I know, I'm at another party. Next thing I know, I'm in my car. Next thing I know, the windshield's in on my face and I'm hearing screaming. And I remember at that moment, I remember feeling like a sigh of relief. Like, okay, this was the bad thing that was going to happen to me. And now somebody can make me stop drinking. So after that happened to me in Chicago, I got connected with a few people that worked in Ventura County because my case is in Ventura County. I had a guy approach me. His name is John Jinks. Thank the Lord for John Jinks. And he was connected with my attorney. And John called me and said, "Hey, I heard that you're in trouble. I heard that you need to get sober. And I hear that you're facing 8 years in prison for this accident that you got in. You need to go to an AA meeting today. I don't care what time it is. You need to go to an AA meeting today. Go now. I'm going to get you hooked up with this treatment center, Hazelden, Betty Ford. I don't think they exist now, or maybe they've been merged into another company. But he referred me to Hazelden. He said, "Look, you need to go to Hazelden and you need to start taking your sobriety seriously." So AA is number one, Hazelden is number two, because AA is accessible to everyone, and it is so many people out there that struggle and so many people that are willing to be your sponsor and be in your corner. Community is always the best way to get over a trauma, to figure things out. You need other people's perspectives. You need other people's stories. You need to tell other people your story, verbalize it so that it doesn't have control over you. it's always hard, right? Because I wanna, the whole thing about sobriety is humility, right? But I think it's kind of, for me, it's always healthy to pat myself on the back. I'm proud of how far I've come, and I'm proud of the artwork that I've made. I don't know. I'm grateful. I'm grateful to God first because you know, He never let me go. The Lord never let me go. He gave me the opportunity to have a new life. He gave me the opportunity to create a relationship with Him. He was just there the whole time. He never actually went anywhere. You could always change your life, but you always have to be able to reflect and see like where your blind spots are. We all have blind spots. No matter how much progress I make, I'm gonna still have blind spots. That's just the nature of life, right? So so yeah, that is what I'm proud of. I'm proud of my awareness, my work, and who I've become out of my addictive circumstance. My advice to anybody if you're still struggling with addiction, is to first off go to meetings, because when you go to a meeting, you're going to get something. That's what I know I had to do. That's the first thing I had to do. The next thing that I would suggest, this is not for everybody, but I needed to do something with my hands. I needed to be focused on something. And so I picked up the camera. I was studying photography, but I picked up the camera and I was the photographer at all parties. And try to figure out something about yourself, because photography led me to painting, and that's just it. I tried one thing and it led to another, and that's always how it works. And then third, just keep in contact with people that are in sobriety. Keep in contact with your sponsor, with other people that you can relate to. And that's it. It's the community. Community is what brings healing.
Hi everybody, my name is Joe. I have been in long-term recovery since October 2, 2013. My family and I immigrated here from the Philippines when I was about 4 years old, and like most immigrant parents, they faced challenges assimilating to American culture. I believe they were very well-intentioned, and they put a lot of emphasis on our education, but I struggled to thrive in a strict environment and meet their expectations, and mental illness is something that's not commonly or properly understood in the Asian immigrant community. So when my mental illnesses started to manifest in substance abuse and self-harm, they actually took me to a psychiatrist, the first of many, that would end up over-medicating me. And my parents thought that taking a pill, would fix all of my problems, but they underestimated the larger landscape of my mental health, and in trying to heal me or help me, they actually ended up giving me a little bit more trauma. For example, on a family trip to the Philippines, I think I was 14 or 15, they actually took me to a witch doctor, and the experience was scary, archaic, terrifying, and similar to something that you would see like in an exorcism. But now I know that they did the best that they could, and aside from everything that I grew up with, I did have a lot of happy aspects in my childhood, and now my parents are even the biggest advocates for mental illness and substance abuse. My drug of choice was crystal meth, benzos, and alcohol. And my first drug that I ever tried was alcohol around the age of 13 or 14. And I remember the night somebody had brought a bottle of tequila to a party, and I ended up drinking almost half of it and blacking out immediately and having to be taken home in the back of my friend's car, and dropped off on my front porch. But looking backwards, I know that my addiction manifested right away in that evening. I went from one extreme to the other. So I started using crystal meth when I started hanging out with a certain group of friends in early high school. And at the time I was already taking Adderall, so it was a natural progression for me to get addicted to crystal meth. And shortly after, I discovered that a family member of mine had also been using, and I started using with them. But the window of it being fun became smaller and smaller and smaller throughout the years, and eventually it turned into something that I just needed to function in everyday life. So February 2011, I ended up getting arrested and put in jail for drug-related charges. And shortly after that, I was experiencing homelessness by my own accord, living out of motels and stolen cars and alleyways in LA. And I don't even think that was the lowest of my bottom. I think when I entered a very violent relationship where I ended up in the hospital, I started to realize that things needed to change and I couldn't live that way anymore. So when I got out of the hospital, I promised my parents and my family that I would stop using drugs. My mother gave me a job at her office, and I started working a 9-to-5 job and living back under her roof. And for a while it was okay until I slipped back up into using. And I think that's where I started to feel my biggest spiritual rock bottom, because there was a huge discrepancy between what I was doing in front of my clients and my coworkers and my 9-to-5 job and what I was doing behind closed doors, which was still getting loaded. One night I actually came home and I was feeling really desperate to get out of the situation I was in, which was using. And I actually dropped to my knees and begged my parents to send me to treatment. And at the time, the insurance that I had could only provide me with an outpatient treatment that I could attend from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So while I did try, at 3 o'clock when I went home, I would go home and I would use again and not come back for weeks at a time. So another option was for me to go to Thailand, and that's what I did. At the end of September of 2013, I traveled for over 24 hours to go to Saraburi, Thailand, to a monastery that specializes in detoxing addicts. It's called Wat Tam Prabak. And I stayed there for about 30 days. It was a really, really interesting experience. And after over 30 days at the detox, I traveled to northern Thailand, to Chiang Rai, to a Buddhist mindfulness-based treatment center where I was introduced to EMDR, yoga, mindfulness, life coaching, therapy, and most importantly, AA, which I still practice today, as well as life coaching and mindfulness and therapy, all of which have been super, super helpful in helping me attain my long-term sobriety. I'm grateful for my life today. It's such a huge difference from my life before. I have a lot of meaningful relationships in my life today. I have a career that I love. I have a very loving husband. I have 2 beautiful dogs. And my life has purpose today, and that's one of the most important things that I've been able to gain in my recovery. In early recovery, it was really important for me to hear from somebody else that recovery wasn't easy, and it wasn't always rainbows and butterflies. And in fact, it would probably be one of the more challenging journeys I would walk on. But I know that if I do the hard work that it takes to heal, if I rely on a sober community that supports me, and if I stay close to my higher power, everything that I receive in sobriety, all the blessings, addiction could never give me that. And I'm grateful.
I was just sitting there and like this was happening, and like they had this big screen TV with like all these different cameras on it of outside, and everybody's just on the edge of their seat like waiting for the cops to come because everybody's paranoid. And all right, so my name is Ricky P. I have just a little under a year of sobriety. My drug of choice was fentanyl. And a little bit about my childhood is I was loved dearly by my mom and dad and by my sister. We moved around a lot. When I was a kid, we moved about 4 or 5 times in between the ages 2 through 12. My parents made sure that I had every single thing that I ever wanted, everything that I ever needed as well. We took family vacation trips and just a lot of snowboarding and skiing trips with my dad. My sister was super involved with me until I was like about 6 or 7. She kind of just stopped liking me as a person, I guess. Not really sure why, but our relationship, we kind of just kept growing further and further apart, and she just kind of made me feel like I wasn't her brother. But other than that, my childhood was great, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. My most recent drug of choice was fentanyl, but I've also had a problem with meth. I've had a problem with cocaine. I've had a problem with crack. I've had a problem with psychedelics. I had a problem with alcohol. And I've also had a problem with Xanax. What I really enjoyed about fentanyl was that it made me so high that I literally didn't have to think about anything or really do anything. It made me really feel really good on the inside, and I don't know, I guess it was just that, I don't know, like almost dying feeling, which is pretty awful to say, but right on the edge of like almost dying was like one of the best feelings ever. Definitely what I liked about meth was that it always gave me the energy that I thought that I needed, or I thought that it gave me the energy. I would always, I don't know, I would stay up for days doing meth and, think that I'm getting all sorts of stuff done, but I don't think that I actually did. Same with crack. I thought that was like one of the best highs ever, but it only lasted like maybe 5 minutes, so I would just constantly have to be doing crack, and that's not good. And I thought that gave me energy too, but it actually just made me really paranoid about every single thing that happened. Xanax, I like that it made me super relaxed, but it also erased my memory for anything that ever happened on it. So I just really liked being high and not having to deal with whatever was going on in my head. I think the first drug that I ever tried was marijuana when I was 15. I actually was part of a youth group at church, and I started hanging out with the older kids, and they were like 17 and 18, and they had cars, and they did whatever they wanted to, they weren't controlled by their parents much anymore. But I met a group of kids there, and they took me to their apartment, and we just smoked some weed while sitting around the hot tub. And, I thought it was ironic because I met these people at church, but I don't think anything too crazy happened. I just smoked the weed, and I felt really high, and like everything was funny, and everybody was having a good time. And then I just went home, and then I didn't smoke again for like a couple months, but nothing too crazy. I was living in a room for rent in Costa Mesa, and I was going to treatment at the most recent place that I went through treatment at, and I was working as a dishwasher at a really fancy restaurant in Newport, and I felt like it was a good job position, because it was a fancy restaurant, but I also really hated dishwashing. And the last time I had dishwashed was at an Italian restaurant, and I was doing fentanyl all day, every day, even at my job, and it just made everything so much better. And so every day working at this place in Newport, I would have the thought like, oh my gosh, fentanyl would make this so much better. This sucks so bad. Like, the dishes are just never ending. And so I had been thinking about getting some fentanyl for a couple weeks, but I just couldn't get myself to actually go get it because I had a head full of AA and I just couldn't get myself to do it. But I did know that if I drank some alcohol first, that I would probably get the balls to go get some fentanyl. So I bought a 6-pack and started drinking, and then by the 4th beer, I felt confident enough to hit up my dealer, and I did. And I hit him up, and I went and got some fentanyl, and then I was smoking it. And I knew I couldn't smoke as much as I was doing before because I hadn't done any in probably like 7 months or so. And so I was doing it all night, and I came back to my house and I was doing it there, and I was also smoking some meth, but I was still a member of the treatment center that I was at, and I decided not to go to outpatient group the next day because I was high, so I'm not going to go, and that would just be purposely putting myself back into detox when I wasn't ready. So I was sitting there smoking it, and my therapist had hit me up, called me on the phone and asked me where I was at, and the director of the treatment center called me and asked me where I was at, and I told him that I was high at my house and that I wasn't coming in. And they told me that I needed to go to their facility so they could help me, and that I needed to stop, and I didn't want to. I had just started, so I'm not trying to stop right away. And so I was texting my therapist back and forth. Our relationship, she really cares about me, I really care about her, so she talked me into wanting to go back to detox. And so I was texting her back and forth, and I was also texting the director back and forth, and I was at my house trying to decide if I wanted to go or not, and I was trying to make a hide-a-bag to take into the detox with fentanyl in it so I didn't actually have to stop. And I was touching it and trying to put little pieces into these bags. I don't know what I was thinking, but I had fell out in between talking to them and making this little bag thing. I overdosed, fell on my floor, and I wasn't breathing. My therapist and the director, I stopped responding to them. So these 2 people showed up to my house from the treatment center, and they were knocking on the front door, and I rented a room. I was in somebody else's house, and the lady answered the door, and they were like, where's Ricky? And she was like, well, I don't know, he's in his room. He just rents a room out here, so I don't know. But they came in, and I was on the floor dead, not breathing. I don't know what exactly, but they had some Narcan on them. I'm not sure if they gave it to me or what, but they called 911, and the paramedics came, and then the paramedics had to hit me with Narcan 3 or 4 times before I came to. And then I came to, and I was like, whoa, man, I just overdosed. That's so embarrassing, and these paramedics are probably super angry that another overdose, I just felt really bad and shameful and just awful about the whole situation. But I think what the crazy part was that God was looking over me in that moment, because I didn't tell them to come to my house. They just came on their own at the right time. If they would have waited any longer, I would have died and I wouldn't be here right now talking to you. And I just think that even in the depths of our addiction, there's something out there watching out for us. And, there's definitely a reason why I didn't die that day. But I just thought it was crazy, all the pieces that played into that story and how it all went down, and that I am still alive today. I think there's a lot of different points that I realized I needed to stop using. But I think the first time that I ever had that thought was I was hanging out with I don't know, these Hispanic people. They claimed to be like part of a cartel or something. I don't know if they actually were, but they had all these different like houses that they had drugs at and like their people at, and one of the houses they like cooked their meth at, and we went there. We were hanging out there. I don't know what exactly we were doing there, but hanging out at this house, and they were cooking the meth, and they had these babies there, or they didn't have babies. They had these kids there, and there was this baby there, and these crazy people like to, I guess, set intentions on their different batches of meth for whatever crazy psychotic reason, but they had brought the baby over to where they were cooking it, and they like took a knife and like cut the baby's arm and then let the blood drip into the batch. And like, I don't know like what kind of weird psychotic thing was going on with like why that was a good idea, but I was just sitting there and like this was happening, and like they had this big screen TV with like all these different cameras on it of outside, and everybody's just on the edge of their seat like waiting for the cops to come because everybody's paranoid. And I was just like, man, this has become a problem. Like, I don't know what's going on with this baby. All these people are paranoid. I'm paranoid now. Like, I could get killed here. I don't even know. So I feel like that was probably the first, like, one of the times it was like, wow, I need to stop because I don't want this life. The treatment that helped me recover was going into a treatment facility. The first time I ever went to treatment out in California, I think was probably my best experience because I didn't know anything about treatment out here at that point. So I was willing and open to do like whatever it took. And I stayed at this treatment center for 8 months. And I really just dove into the program of AA. And I also dove into like going to church and being super into the Bible. I think the program of AA really saved my life this time. Treatment was good to like take me out of the current situation that I was in, but I wouldn't say that it had like a huge impact on me staying sober this time. I think what I'm most proud of myself for is within this last year of doing my program, getting sober, and really getting plugged in with the sober community in Orange County and with the church that I work at. By doing all those things and staying accountable to all my commitments that I've made, the fact that my dad came and visited me about 2 months ago, he came and visited me, and I got to make an amends to him, and through the amends process, it was good to like get everything out on the table and like hear like his side of what his experience was. But I think him saying that he was super proud of me and super stoked for me and like willing to help me in any way possible, I think that would be my most proudest moment because of all the things that I did for myself and, you know, rebuilt my life back to a good state. And having my dad say he's proud of me and like he checks up on me now and like we talk regularly, I think that would be like my most proudest moment. You know, if you put the work in to getting sober and rebuilding your life back and putting yourself out there and just really giving yourself a chance, the life that you can build for yourself is going to be way better than that fentanyl high or that cocaine high or anything that you think is like so great now, like using. There is a better life out there. And I think what saved my life this time is that I really dove into the program of AA and I really kept searching for my higher power. So I would say to just really try to find a higher power and put a lot of work into getting connected with that higher power.
And I thought it was great. I didn't have the reaction most people had. I didn't get paranoid. I didn't feel nervous. I just knew that I wanted to try it, and I really liked it, and it was game over. My name is Sasha Antun, and I've been sober for 3 years and 8 months, and my drugs of choice were heroin and meth. I think what I enjoyed the most is my head finally stopped. I finally felt as comfortable as I had always wanted to feel, and I didn't like feeling incapable of doing things, so when I mixed them both, that was like the perfect combination for me to feel like I could do anything that I wanted. My childhood was a little different. It was just me and my mom from the time I was like 3 or 4 years old on, and we moved around a lot. My mom did the absolute best she could to give me like the life that she always wanted to have when she was younger and that she didn't get to, but it was a lot of pressure, and I had to grow up really quickly to be, there for her emotionally, because it was just her and I think, well, the first drug I tried was weed. I was 12 years old, living in Canada, and I was really, really depressed at the time. I had like a lot of suicidal ideation at a young age. And we were partying in the forest somewhere and smoked weed out of a can, and I thought it was so cool and so different, and it felt like a different way to connect with people that I hadn't experienced before. And I just remember being a little annoyed that I didn't feel it as strongly as I thought I would. But I just remember laughing and not caring about what was happening, and that was always the goal. It started with weed and alcohol when I was 12, and then we moved back to California, and I spent a year being homeschooled for my freshman year of high school, and then in 10th grade I went to a massive high school with like over 1,000 kids in my graduating class, and the people that I ended up becoming friends with were the party people. It was like the massive group of people that were always drinking or smoking weed and throwing big parties. And through those people that I met, and I think I was, maybe 14, 15 at the time, I met another group of people, except all of these people were out of high school, and they were not in college, or maybe had done some college, and they were all over 21, and I thought that was so cool, and they were all in bands, and I thought that was so different and fun. And they all did a whole bunch of drugs that I had never tried before. Every time I would hang out with them, they were the garbage disposals. They would always have a different drug every weekend, and every single time I never said no, and I always wanted to try it. So I went through all of like the hallucinogens, started using benzos, started doing coke every weekend, and it just kind of kept escalating from there. Did a lot of ecstasy and acid. And I just never said no whenever something was around. So eventually heroin got brought around, and that was the first one I tried out of the two. And I remember everyone was so annoyed with me that I wanted to try it because they thought I was too young to use heroin. But of course, it didn't take too long for me to convince anyone to let me try it. And I was able to keep it to just the weekends, even with heroin, for a surprisingly long period of time before it just took one time where I was like, you know what, I feel great. I'm going to start using tomorrow morning and just use all day. And then I just never stopped. And it wasn't too long after that. I think I was 17 the first time I tried meth. And I thought it was great. I didn't have the reaction most people had. I didn't get paranoid. I didn't feel nervous. I just knew that I wanted to try it, and I really liked it, and it was game over. I had been arrested and was in jail and physically forced to be sober that I finally realized that I needed to get sober. Before that, I did not even see it as an option. But when I was finally forced to, and they had AA meetings in jail, I like started getting all these little seeds planted of, you know, this is what I need to do if I want anything to change. I had that moment of clarity where I realized like how much destruction and chaos had been in my life, and I was choosing for there to not be a solution because I didn't want to get sober. And that was like the first time I even had like an inkling inside that I wanted to be sober, because I didn't know that it would fix anything that was going on. I went to a detox and residential program here in Orange County. It was a beautiful facility. The thing that I remember the most, that was the most powerful for me, was my therapist. Really what helped me get sober was coming to my therapist with the attitude of like, here is all of my stuff. Here is everything I never wanted to tell anyone, and I need you to help me fix it. I remember my first session with her, I literally laid out my trauma one by one and was like, here you go. I don't know what to do with this, and I'm going to die if I keep using. And she was just like, okay, awesome. We need that type of willingness and honesty, and we're going to make something work. I needed a lot of trauma work. I needed a lot of therapy, and I needed a lot of direction. I needed to be busy, and I needed a lot of direction, and that's what worked for me. They got us up in the morning, and we went to a morning meeting, did group all day, did another meeting, had to exercise, had to do chores around the house. You know, I needed structure, and I needed accountability because I wasn't used to either of those. I know this is a weird question. What am I most proud of now? I mean, I'm like continually humbled by what my life looks like every single day. The fact that I am a functioning person in society blows my mind. The fact that I get to help people and participate in everyone else's recovery as part of what I do for work. I get to talk to people when they're in their darkest point and they need help. Like, that's my passion, and the fact that I get to do that for my job still blows my mind. And I mean, I think the thing that I'm the most proud of, if I would have to say that, is that I'm not so focused on myself today. I am not drowning in my own selfishness of what's going to make me feel better and what do I want. I am driven and motivated by being of service to other people, and I have never felt so much freedom as I do when I'm doing that. The advice that I would offer someone who is still struggling is that bottom is as soon as we stop digging, right? We're the type of people that, at least for me, homelessness didn't matter. Being close to death didn't matter. I always thought there might be something that would happen one day that would finally make me want to stop enough. But really, it was just as soon as I stopped digging, that's when my bottom was. I needed help, and I think the biggest message that I would want to say is that, like, there is a solution and it works, because I didn't think there was one. I thought I was irreparably damaged, and that could not have been further from the case. There were so many people that have helped me and continue to help me on a daily basis become, you know, the person that I want to be and be able to help other people. And so the help is available, and people care, and people have been through it, and they've been exactly where you are. We're different, but not that different at all. We are very much the same, and there's a solution for all of us.
No sheets, no comforters, no blankets, a little nightstand, and there was a baby with a shirt wrapped around it for a diaper and like no clothes, and the baby was like literally looked like she was blue. My name's Hannah, and I've been sober 68 days. So my childhood was pretty good up until I started drinking when I was 11, and then everything kind of went downhill from there. My parents were arguing a lot, and it just caused my mental health to kind of start to deteriorate at such a young age. And I started going to psych wards from the age of 12 to 16. I saw psychiatrists and therapists, and nobody could really pinpoint exactly what was going on. So I had to deal with all that. At such a young age, it was a lot for me to take in. So my using and drinking worsened due to that. So my drugs of choice were heroin, cocaine, and alcohol. I enjoyed everything about each drug. Heroin made me feel like I was on top of the world. It made me feel this sense of overwhelming love that I didn't find anywhere else. I didn't find it with my parents. I didn't find it with friends. I didn't find it within myself. I found it when I started doing heroin. And then cocaine made me feel invincible because it gave me the self-confidence that I couldn't find anywhere else or in myself. And it created a whole new persona for me that was like, didn't care about anything or anyone, and I loved that about it because it made me feel indestructible. It made me feel like, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it was just like unlike anything else. And then there was alcohol, and that was just like always a good time. That was for me an escape from all the mental illness crap that I was being told I had, and it was just a way out. It got me away from my family. It got me away from my friends. I was able to isolate and do my own thing and just sit with a bottle in my room by myself and be completely content. So the crazy experience while using was, I was in New York because that's where I'm from, and it was like the dead of winter, so it was like negative 30 degrees probably, and I needed to pick up heroin. So I reached out to my dealer, and she said that we had to go to the main house where they had it. So I went, and it was like an abandoned storefront with like all boarded up windows. So we went upstairs, and like the stairs were all wooden and broken and stomped in. So we finally got upstairs, and when I looked, there was no furniture. It was like a tiny studio. There was no furniture. There's a pit bull chained to a pipe sticking out of the ground, and like you could see like the cabinets and the cupboards and everything were empty. And then it was basically the kitchen, I guess what would be like the living room area with the pit bull, and then there was one bedroom. And when I looked into the bedroom, there was a mattress with no sheets, no comforters, no blankets, a little nightstand, and there was a baby with a shirt wrapped around it for a diaper and like no clothes, and I was freezing, and like I was dressed super warm, and the baby was like literally looked like she was blue. I said I don't know if it was a boy or a girl, but it looked blue, and like it was freezing. And then they went into, I guess, the kitchen area, and they opened the refrigerator, and there was no food in the refrigerator, just like so much heroin. And I remember like they grabbed however much I was getting, gave it to me, and they were like, all right, like that's it. And like that image has stayed in my head because of that poor baby. Like I've never experienced anything like that. So for a month straight I was in jail every weekend, and my mom's super sick. And I remember it was one night I was going to New York City with my friend, and my mom was crying in her bed. She can't walk, and she was begging me to bring her to the emergency room because something was wrong. And I was doing cocaine off of her bathroom sink, yelling at her, telling her that I needed to go out and meet my friend and that I couldn't bring her. So I left my mom there, didn't bring her to the emergency room. And on my way home from the city after being out all night drinking, partying, doing whatever, I got a DUI, and I woke up in jail. And that day I got out of court, whatever, I saw the judge in the morning, and I told my dad, like, I need help because it got to be too much. And after that whole incident with my mom, I knew something had to change. For me, going to detox and then going to a residential IOP program, that helped me the most, only because I was able to build a foundation before branching out to IOP. I was able to have like a network of women, a network of people to reach out to. I built that while I was in residential. And then once I moved on to IOP, like I wasn't alone. I already had a group of people to help me. I'm most proud of myself for making the decision and taking the initiative to ask for help, because that was always a problem for me. But for me to come out to California from New York, like that was my decision, that was my initiative. So I'm proud of myself for that. The advice I would give to somebody struggling with my drug of choice would be to ask for help. Don't try and do it alone, because I've tried doing that and it does not work. Definitely be open about it, be honest about it, and just reach out to other people, because there's always a solution. There's always going to be people that want to help you and that will help you. So.
and I tripped out in a jail cell for my first time. I saw things talking to me, demons. I saw really bad stuff. Scary, really. It scared the pants off me more than being in jail scared me. My name's Richard Prouty. I've been sober since May 3rd, 2020. My childhood was pretty good until I was about 8 years old. My dad died, and life kind of went to shit for a long time. I didn't really do drugs or anything until I was about 14, 15. I got passed around by my family. Kind of was just a paycheck for everybody, it felt like. And so I distanced myself from anybody and everybody, and therefore ended up going to drugs and bad friends for feeling like I was loved. My drug of choice was anything that would alter my mindset, but more than not, I liked meth, alcohol, cocaine, pills, oxys, Xanax, things like that. But if it fucked me up, I would do it. The first drug I tried was methamphetamines. I was working, and I did it to stay awake. I felt like the king of the world. I really did. I felt like I was the top dog, the head honcho, you know. Didn't turn out like that. The craziest experience I had while I was on drugs was it's my first time going to jail. I snorted a line of bath salts. I didn't realize it was bath salts, but I did. And I tripped out in a jail cell for my first time. I saw things talking to me. I saw demons. I saw really bad stuff. Scary, really. It scared the pants off me more than being in jail scared me. My sister wouldn't allow me back in the house. I could tell she was extremely mad at me for stupid things I've done because I was high. I saw my family kind of backing away and stuff. I didn't get treatment after that, but that was my turning point. That's when I realized, like, I needed to get better or die, one of the two. Treatment that's helped me recover would have to be in-house treatment and AA. AA's helped me, NA's helped me. Therapy, therapy's helped me. A little bit of higher power. I'm most proud of myself for admitting my faults and coming to terms with my family and apologizing. I'm also most proud of myself for going to get help, because it's not an easy thing to do. It's not like easy to say is like, you know, I'm messed up. I need help. You know, it's not easy to raise your hand and ask for help. The advice I would offer to anybody out there still struggling with drugs, alcohol, or whatever it is that you're not alone. Like, there's plenty of us out here. We are basically one big family. I know it's lonely, and I know it gets hard out there, but you just have to admit to yourself that you're powerless over it. You just go ahead and get help. You know, you're not alone out there. We're all out here.
I've zip tied people, their hands, and then I zip tie their feet, and then I zip tie their hands and feet together. And then if they don't have the money, we go through their house and take the equivalent of, you know, I call it repo. I call it repossession, you know. Yeah, my name is Ashley. I'm 51 days sober, and my childhood was pretty crazy. Both my parents went to prison very early in life, so basically I got adopted by my grandparents. I was visiting my parents in a maximum security penitentiary on Saturdays, and on Sundays we were at church. So I ended up having to stop visiting my dad. Well, I didn't have to stop visiting him, but people, I looked a lot older than I did once I got to a teenager, and so the other inmates thought, they made remarks like, oh, is that your sister? And I was really his daughter, so that kind of, you know, made it weird. Both my parents were in prison at the same time, so we had to go back and forth from, my mom was this Saturday and then church on Sunday, and then the next weekend it was my dad. That was his Saturday, and then church the next day. So I'm the oldest out of 8. There's a bunch of us. And Yeah, my grandparents, they did everything they could to make me be a better person, but I was for sure not going to be a good person. I wanted everything I wanted the opposite of what they wanted for me. So I gave them a real hard time. Really crazy adolescent. First time I did drugs was when I was about 15 years old, and I didn't stop. They just got to better drugs, more drugs, and worse situations. My youngest two brothers, they're only 11 right now. So I'm 30, they're 11. They're like a year older than my oldest child. So yeah, it's messy. Yeah. Well, basically it's gonna be all the above. Whatever I can get my hands on, I would get high on. What I would spend the most money on was Xanax bars. I love them. And what I got strung out on though was heroin. Yeah, the first time I seen heroin, I had an ounce of it. And no. And yeah, I basically, the last shot of heroin I did, I tied off at the neck, and I put my rig in a tequila bottle, and I drew up with tequila, and I took a thick 70 straight to the jugular. Yeah, so that's what I did. And I'm just being honest here. That was the day I got, that was the day before I came out here. So yeah, I built up a tolerance to Xanax bars where the last run, it was the fact that it made everything chaotic it made me able to deal with it a little bit better, because I don't deal with high stress situations very well. Mental illness, doesn't allow me to do that. So I self-medicated for sure. And I built up a tolerance to the point where I ate, the last time I got off on Xanax bars, I ate 52 Xanax bars, and I went to a prison and fought my old man at Visit. He was in prison, and I fought him and fought all the police officers as well, and caught a violent charge out of Oklahoma. My first real narcotic, I guess, would have been Xanax bars. Xanax bars. I loved them. I've never loved anything as much in my life. Everything that was a problem, 10 bars later, I didn't even know what that was, you know what I mean? Like, it was cool, it was good. And when my dad, he got out of prison, I was like 16, and we were under the strict impression, you stay out of my way and I'll stay out of yours. And we didn't do that. We butted heads the whole time. He wanted to tell me I can't take pills, and all I want to do is take pills and fight him. And I can't whoop him. Okay, there's a lot of people I can whoop. He's not one of them. So yeah, that's my first. And then I smoked meth throughout the entire time, which is my least favorite drug. I hate meth, but I did the most of it. I hate it because, for one, when we stop cooking it, we stop getting high. And all there is ice right now, and that shit sucks. You can't even get high. Okay, and then I don't like to deal with tweakers. Okay, they steal shit. They will steal your shit and then help you look for it. Okay, so I don't like tweakers. But the reason I smoke so much meth, for one, I shoot heroin and I smoke meth, because if I shoot meth, people are getting zip tied and shit's getting set on fire. Okay, it makes me weird. Like, the feds are in the trees type shit, okay? So I would do such a thick shot of heroin, I would have to smoke meth to sober up. If that makes any sense at all. I would just have to smoke some meth because I would get way too loaded. And I would definitely sit there and be like, oh my God, I need to hit the pipe for a minute because I have to sober up. The craziest thing that I have experienced while using is having somebody owe me money, and me on general principle alone, I didn't have to, but you suit up and you kick a door in. I got my buddies behind me holding a Walmart sack to drop all the phones in, okay, and I've zip tied people, their hands, and then I zip tie their feet, and then I zip tie their hands and feet together. And then if they don't have the money, we go through their house and take the equivalent of, I call it repo. I call it repossession. You owe me money, you don't have my money. That's pretty much that's what's gotten me involved in the most bullshit, is because I was kind of big time. I was the plug. I didn't go buy little sacks of dope to do. That's why I say I hate tweakers, because I would have a retarded amount of weed or meth, and I would have to, if somebody didn't have me my money, and then it's like, oh great, here we go, we're gonna have to do this shit. And it got me into situations where I didn't know the outcome of the situation before it went down, because it's unpredictable. When you go in, these people could have guns, they could have somebody there that you didn't plan on being there. There could be kids there. There could be a wife there. And so, you know, that's what it is. When I got arrested, I was picking up in Oklahoma City, and the pickup was just fine. We made it out, and we ended up stopping at a casino. And since I was fucked up on pills, I walked into this casino, and this girl, she's standing there, and just the way she's looking at me just rubs me the wrong way. And so I immediately drag her down through there. You know, I just whoop her ass. Well, the light horsemen's come. That's what in Oklahoma, because casinos are on tribal land, they're called the light horsemen. And so, yeah, it's a whole nother ballgame when you go on tribal land. I'm standing there, and lucky for me, the dude that was with her old man was way more wanted than I was. Yeah, so he was like, listen, if you don't have any other holds, we're going to let you go. Well, I have holds. I always have holds. So I was in McLean County and was just waiting for Tulsa to come get me. I couldn't be bonded out because my old man, he'll bond me out of jail immediately. He doesn't let me sit. But since there was no bond and I was just being waited for another county, I couldn't leave. And when that happened, my aunt picked my kids up from school. And when I got out, I was like, hey, I just got out. I'm on my way to go get the kids from you. And she was like, actually, you're not. And I'm like, well, I don't get it. I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, fair enough. I just left my mom's house. I don't have a place to stay. Cool. Okay, I'm going to come see them. And she says, no, you cannot. There's been a no contact order because I filed for guardianship and you didn't show up to court. And I'm like, right there, my whole entire heart got ripped out of my chest, and I haven't had it back since. Okay, so my kids are with my aunt right now. But I mean, thank the Lord, she's the best person to have them. She takes good care of them. There's no other better place for them than my aunt's house. And I'm grateful for that. But what I do want to make clear is that I am a good mom. I've had my kids up until right now, and it just, a part of me died that day. The type of treatment that helped me recover is leaving everything I knew behind and coming to 1,300 miles away from home and putting myself into a treatment or a rehab or whatever that wasn't court ordered. This is the first time. And at first I really didn't want to come. I didn't want to come. My old man, he kind of set it all up and, got everything rolling for me to come out all the way out to California from Oklahoma. And I've never been out of Oklahoma. So doing that, being around good, sober people, and of course the 12-step program that I'm currently working right now. I am most proud of myself for getting on the airplane and actually taking the positive steps in the right direction to recover, because I don't want it in my heart, it wasn't going to happen. And nobody thought I was going to get on the airplane. Nobody even thought I would make it to Oklahoma City from Tulsa, you know what I mean? But I did. And I'm most proud of myself for wanting it now. I'm proud of myself for wanting to be clean and sober instead of wanting to be dope dealing, gang banging, what I was. So, yeah. What I would say to someone who is struggling with addiction is to learn from my mistakes. You don't have to make your own. My mistakes, there's plenty to go around. Please just take a quick look at my story and my life and learn from it, because more times than not, people, of course, like I didn't either. I didn't listen to it. My dad's been incarcerated, my mom, all my whole family, my uncle, my whole family. And if I would have just listened to them, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So if somebody would just learn from my mistakes and recover through watching or hearing what I have done to myself and my addiction, would be a blessing. Yeah, just to help somebody else without them having to destroy themselves and go all the way to rock bottom first. Because you don't reach rock bottom until you stop digging. And once we get down there, where there seems like there's no way out. And there is a way out. It's through just being tired of that lifestyle and wanting it so bad that wanting it to the point where you've never wanted anything else in your life. Like you want recovery. And that's what it is.